Welcome to season 13, everybody, and welcome to this episode of the DATEABLE podcast where we are on a mission to dig into the whys of people's behavior when it comes to modern dating. And we've been on this mission for 13 frickin' seasons.
I can't even believe it. Lucky 13, here we are, and we have a treat for all of you today. We are digging into the whys when it comes to sex.
And you guys have asked for it. You asked for more sex. And we're giving you more sex.
We're giving it to you because we're a sex podcast after all. You don't know. Sex falls into the whole scheme of things. I feel like you can't have dating without sex. You can't have relationships without sex. And we're going to go into all of that with, I feel like, I almost want to feel like she's like the godfather of sex or like the godmother of sex, I guess is the, I feel like when you hear about sex books, Come As You Are is one that people always reference. And we were super lucky that we're part of the Frolic Media Network, which you probably have heard us talk about many of times on our podcast. And the author of Come As You Are is also part of the network. So we obviously jumped at the chance. To try to get her as a guest. And here she is for our season opener.
Emily Nagoski is her name. I feel like she could be a household name by now. I feel like she's responsible for opening up the conversation about sex and what's normal when it comes to sex. And this is one of those books that to me was so eye-opening because it wasn't about, how to have the best sex of your life or what you're doing wrong. It was like how to just accept how your sex life is right now and how to better understand how your body works when it comes to intimacy, stimulation, the things that turn you on and things that turn you off. It is absolutely probably the most beneficial book for your sex life to read today, whether you're a man or a woman.
Yep, whatever your sexuality, whatever your ages, stage of life. I thought it was completely eye-opening. I can't even believe I hadn't read it until recently. I kind of feel like I should have, from a long time ago. Was this your first time reading it also, Yue? Or
it was my first time. I had heard about it for years, but she did update the book this year. So I'm actually glad that I read it this year. And I have an excerpt from the book that I think really sums up her message. If I may, Julie,
Yes, hit it.
You are inadequate. Spanking, food play, ménage à trois. You've done all those things, right? Well, you've at least had clitoral orgasms, vaginal orgasms, uterine orgasms, energy orgasms, extended orgasms, and multiple orgasms. And you've mastered at least 35 different positions for intercourse. If you don't try all these things, you're frigid. If you've had too few partners, don't watch porn, and don't have a collection of vibrators in your bedside table, you're a prude. Also, you're too fat and too thin. Your breasts are too big and too small. Your body is wrong. If you're not trying to change it, you're lazy. If you're satisfied with yourself as you are, you're settling. And if you dare to actively like yourself, you're a conceited bitch. In short, you are doing it wrong. Do it differently. No, that's wrong too. Try something else. Forever.
Yeah, take that in.
I mean, I feel like that does sum it up well because this whole, you are normal is such the message that she's bringing in. And I don't know, I feel like you're, constantly learning new things about sex. Even we're both, I'm still in my late 30s, but almost in my 40s. And, you would think that you would have it all figured out by now. But I feel like it's always something that you're learning new things. The education of sex never ends, probably because we had such horrible sex education growing up.
Sex education is such a misnomer because I learned nothing about sex. I only learned about contraception.
Yep.
And I only learned about diseases and STIs.
Yeah, it's all fair tactics. And I think I don't know, I was having a conversation with a guy friend, and he was saying how one of the topics that no one ever talks about is how women's vaginas are all different. How in society everyone's always talking about dick size all the time, width and girth and length and all the stuff, but no one ever talks about vaginas being different. And I think I think that's actually like an important topic, and my friend is probably not the right person to talk about it because he has, limited experience. But I feel like what Emily is saying here too, and we talk about in the episode, is there is no normal. Like, I think like everyone thinks that if they're not doing something a certain way, that something's wrong per se. And I think with a quote you said, like the media message of what sex is and what we learned in sex education, that kind of drills home normal. And she's basically saying, like, throw that all away.
Yeah, I think one of my major learnings, even being in my 40s now, is this idea of frequency. I used to judge my sex life on how often I was having sex. And I realized that's not a really great gauge for your sex life because it's sort of quantity over quality. You could be having a lot of bad sex. That does not mean you're having a great sex life. And I used to judge my partners based on that. And I would get scared, 3 months into a relationship, does your sex die down a little bit? Are you having less sex? But ultimately, it all comes back to intimacy and connection. And we place so much pressure on the quantity of sex that we forget to place importance on the quality of connection with your partner.
Mm-hmm. That is so true. And I mean, we go into it all in this episode, but I think one of the things that stuck out for me the most is over time how things change too. And I haven't been in like a 5+ year relationship before, or like a 20-year relationship, like having kids, like all the stuff that like, does, or just going through stress. Like we talk a lot about stress and like how does that impact your sex life. And I think like this really opened my eyes up that like if things kind of can go in waves, like it doesn't mean that there's something necessarily wrong with the relationship. And like we've heard before, like people are like, oh, sex is a barometer for how the relationship is doing. And I think like on some sense that's correct. Like it can't be like, non-existent or like that one person isn't satisfied at all. But I do think there is external stuff that really has nothing to do with the relationship or just where you're both at the time. Like if you have like a sick parent, like how are you going to feel like sexy? Like that doesn't have to do with your relationship.
Yeah, life happens. And then how are you really supposed to maintain the same sort of sexual desires as you evolve as a person? And I think that's the ultimate message, is that as we evolve ourselves, our sex lives will evolve. And that's something really exciting. It's not something that we should look down upon at all.
No. And I think like I remember talking to a friend about this, and like she was talking about just how her sex life was not good with her partner. And I'm like, have you talked to him about it? And she's like, I can't. And I feel like there's this feeling of like not, like it feels like this like super personal topic that no one wants to rock the boat on. But ultimately it was causing a lot of like dissatisfaction in the relationship. And I think like you're worried that you're going to offend someone, but at the same time, like if you're just like not communicating about it and it's obvious that you're not having sex, like that's not good either. Like people are just going to be like, oh, we haven't had sex in 6 months. Everything's great. Like there's unspoken stuff there too.
Remember that woman I met years ago after an event, and she told me she hadn't had sex with her boyfriend for like over 4 years. And she said they're very close, but that's just one topic they can't talk about. And I was just floored. For 4 years you're not having sex with each other and you can't talk about it. That's like beyond sex. That's something else. That's a deeper issue there.
Totally. But like, why are we so afraid to talk about it?
So afraid.
And I think I think like we go into this, and I mean, there are times that sex isn't going to line up in a relationship. And I think that's really hard. And I personally haven't been there enough to give like super solid advice on it. But I can only imagine that is so challenging. Like if you're just not on the same page as your partner when it comes to sex, like if everything else is great in the relationship and that's like the one area that isn't. And I'm really glad we had this conversation with Emily, because I feel like the way I might have approached that topic was was like the counter of what she did. So I thought it was really helpful to hear about that from an expert. And I'm sure many of you, like if you're going through this now, you've gone through it in the past, or even if your sex life is fantastic with your partner, I think for me personally, being aware of it is really good to get ahead of it. So if things do happen, you're like, okay, I know some ways that I could handle this.
And know that your sex life is going to be different than other people's. So we cannot be keeping up with the Joneses when it comes to sex lives. I feel like in the past, I would talk to friends about it and they'd be like, oh my God, my boyfriend and I are having sex like five days a week, and it would put so much pressure on me. Or they're like, oh, we've been having a lot of public sex, and I'm like, oh my God, now I got to find like a public area to have sex in just so I can feel like I'm also a little sexy kitten. But if that's not the way to evaluate your own, because you're the only person, you and your partner are the only ones in your relationship or in your sexual coupling, and other people can't judge it, and you can't judge other people's either. They're all
totally
so
and that's why I like the whole size thing. I mean, for men, and now we're talking about for women also, or people who identify as women. And I think it like ultimately doesn't matter. It's like as long as it's working for you, it's all about like the fit together. Yeah, let's do a few announcements. You've all heard it before, but we have the new Sounding Board 2.0 that we are kickstarting next month officially. So if you are interested in joining the Sounding Board, definitely get in now. We've seen a lot of new people rolling through, which is awesome. You will lock in our legacy rate. So we are now going to move to one tier. You will lock in the legacy rate. We will be upping this rate come September. So definitely get in now if you've been thinking about it. In 2.0, you're going to have the opportunity to talk to Yue and I, doing these like coffee chats / office hours. We're still working on the full name, but basically it's an opportunity to ask us anything about your dating lives and to just shoot the shit and talk to us in a group setting. And also, it's that mastermind with other folks too. So you might get a answer from us, but you also might get a really great answer from another person to whatever you're going through. And we are also rolling out like a more, I don't know if I want to use the word curriculum, but like more of a focused discussions. That's like the way I want to say it. We've learned from Sounding Board 1.0 that people really love coming when there's a specific topic that's super relevant, and they get this opportunity to chat with other folks, hear different perspectives, and that's exactly what we're going to be doing. So we're going to have our hosts be leading these amazing discussions that, are definitely, it's like you're kind of like doing your own mini podcast with these people, but it's not recorded for the public, which is kind of the best of both worlds here. So
yes, because that would be illegal. So we wouldn't be doing that. But we are experimenting with Sounding Board in its truest form. It's called the Sounding Board for a reason. And this is a safe space for you to come to and get pretty much crowdsource opinions and advice from other people who may be going through the same things or have been through them before. So get all the information at dateablepodcast.com/sounding board. You can also DM us on Instagram at Dateable Podcast, because we're pretty active there and we can answer any questions you may have. But it is something that I think it's part of personal self-care, and you deserve it. So treat yourself.
And then, of course, follow us on Instagram at Dateable Podcast. That is our other active social channel, especially with season 13 rolling out. We're going to have great clips from some of our guests, some teasers of what's to come. And of course, there was this one quote that we put up this week that I feel like got so much fucking love.
Yes.
Oh my God, people were like sharing this left and right. I've never seen anything we put up get this many quotes, or many shares, which was just funny. And it was basically, I'll read it. It was, me, I don't want to go on this date. Also me, but maybe he's the one. Narrator, he wasn't the one.
He wasn't the one.
That was a better narrator voice.
The one is right around the corner. I know. If only we could have voices following us around, narrating our lives. How fascinating would that be?
Exactly. But I think, it will give you, your daily inspiration, your daily laugh, whatever you want to take away from it.
whatever you want to call it, and just your daily support system. How about we call it that? Your daily
call it
support
that.
system. Yes.
Sometimes you gotta just laugh when shit's hitting the fan, right?
Yes. Yes. You got people rooting for you with the best memes and quotes on the interwebs, folks.